Good news, John. I found out today Twitter doesn't shadow ban people. They have fancy lawyer words for it, and it's called, what is it called?
Visibility filtering?
Right. Yeah, and I made an image today, which we're demonstrating it. I don't know if you can see all these Twitter users I have depicted over here, but they certainly can't see you because the visibility has been filtered by this very complex mechanism, which basically filters out sort of all incoming light that might stimulate the eyes and allow them to view stuff. I tell you, this is an exciting show because I don't know what Section 50 is. I'm interested to hear what we're going to talk about.
Well, it's sort of an interesting combination. Again, it's like peanut butter and chocolate. We're going to combine two topics and see how they go together. And I think they go together pretty interestingly. But it's fascinating what we've learned in the last week. The initial drop was taking place during our show last Friday. And then there was another drop in the middle a day or two ago. And then there's been a third drop just minutes before we went live this evening. So quite a bit of information has been released. And yet, this is the amuse-bouche. This doesn't really amount to the real meaningful visibility filtering. And what we're going to take a look at tonight live, like we're going to do some real-time examples, and we're going to show the audience some visibility filtering happening on other platforms. And we're going to show them that in real time on our patron-only show.
Yeah.
Because one of the things you don't do is, you don't want to alienate your hosts. So we're going to do that type of stuff elsewhere.
Yeah, that'll be on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You know, John, for the past couple of weeks, I've also been offering memberships to people who are watching us on Odyssey.com, and I really do encourage people to check it out, even if they choose not to become members of Crowdsource the Truth on Odyssey.com. It's a really great platform, excellent search engine, and it's not controlled by Google. I don't see any shadow banning happening here. If you get on there, search for Crowdsource the Truth, and you tick this membership tab, you can become a member and access the sponsor exclusive content.
Very nice, very nice. I've been publishing to Odyssey as well. I don't offer the subscription option, but some of my older videos, and in fact, some of the videos that were deleted, let's call it, I don't know what the term is or whatever.
They were
some of the videos,
visibility filtered. You can't see them.
Right. So there is a channel, Johnny Hoover channel, and there's a whole bunch of content there on Odyssey that you guys can go and visit. So check that out. But there's no, you don't get to sign up and pay money to see my patron stuff. That for me, it's only
I think you could add it
on Patreon. I could, but then there's all kinds of other reasons.
No, the way the videos get to you. Right. Well, we got to think about that.
We'll talk about it.
I just thought about it. There's something we could do. We'll talk about that offline.
All right. We've got a great show, though, because now that this information is coming out. So one of the key people that has been in the news in the last 24 hours as far as who was visibility limited or filtered or what have you was Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. And Dr. Jay Bhattacharya is one of the founders of this Great Barrington Declaration, which I don't necessarily agree with 100%.
Remind me what that declared?
Pardon?
What was it that it was declaring? I've heard about it. But
it was sort of anti-lockdown, and I have great respect for the man, and I have great respect for all these other people who participated in the Great Barrington Declaration. It doesn't mean that their declaration's 100% accurate, since they were missing key information when they declared it. In other words, if you make this big declaration and you stick your your flag in the ground on the beach, and you're da da da, and here's our declaration, and we're going to write it up. But you're missing a key piece. In fact, you're missing the number one comorbidity.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like yikes. You don't really want to charge into battle when you haven't completed your reconnaissance. And I see just way too much of it.
To some extent, medicine is like that always, because they really don't know. I mean, somebody could take apart and reassemble a Buick and know what every single piece does. There are things in the body that remain not that well understood. So to some extent, doctors for a long time have been making their best assessment and doing the best that they can without fully understanding. And I'm not saying that that makes it okay, but if they are adhering to the scientific process, when you come with this new information, maybe through Twitter, if you weren't visibility filtered, they would take that into their thing and consider it in the context of everything else.
And so it's interesting that you say that, because Dr. Jay Bhattacharya does follow me on Twitter. So despite we now know that he was visibility filtered. I'm certain that I have been, because you and I have used the tools to check that in the past. We've looked at it and said, oh yeah, he's the search limited and things like that. So we know this, and it's not a mystery. The issue here that nobody seems to be discussing are the ramifications. The ramifications of suppressing what might have been information that could have saved people's lives. If there's 1 million plus Americans that died, and there's over 6.5 million people that died globally from this COVID-19 virus, and we know that there was a comorbidity scenario that exceeded all others, more than obesity, more than diabetes, more than COPD, that there was this other comorbidity. And that if these two viruses were in the same person, their chances of survival were clearly far worse than any other scenario. And yet, all of these experts missed it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's kind of remarkable. Now, the few who got an opportunity to see the data that, you and I have been presenting, it's not consistent with the set of beliefs that they've been running with for 2.5 years now.
Yeah, so they reject it.
Not necessarily reject it, but it's almost like if you've been putting the puzzle together and now there's all these new pieces that just showed up, and you're like, well, wait a second, I gotta pull my corners. I'm not pulling my corners off, man.
Right.
I'm not pulling my corners off, right? So it's like, I don't care what these pieces look like. I'm not moving my corners.
Well, you've got a lot of different kind of like vocabulary words for us to help us understand these different biases. And what I have observed, what you're describing right now, is exactly what Tom Lipscomb said to me. I was reviewing a video that Charles and I did in 2018 about this death of Peter Smith. And Lipscomb was saying, oh, no, I believe it was a suicide. And I started presenting him with some of the contradictory evidence, like Peter Smith bought 1 canister of helium. We have the video from Walmart. Somebody from Walmart later confirmed that was the only can of helium in stock. But the police crime scene photos show 2 cans of helium there. And of course, that leaves the open question of where the hell did the other can of helium come from? And it's not like a leaf that would blow in the window and it could just randomly show up there. Somebody had to go somewhere and get this other helium. Who did that? Why did they put it there? Why are there 2? I mean, we have to answer that to consider this solved. You can't just say, well, that's a little too esoteric for me to consider, so I think this happened. That's not investigating. That's just making up your mind based on a guess.
And that's a single murder. And then, we go to the Vegas shooting, and then we go to this disappearing respiratory virus, the mystery of the disappearing influenza for 2 years. So, the global disappearance of influenza for 2 years. So the fact that there has been the censorship, the root cause analysis stuff that we've been doing in the past, you can use root cause analysis the other way. You can use it to say, well, what was the real motive? In other words, what rather than the root cause of something, what was the actual motive? What was the real motive? And you use the same technique. Why would somebody do that? And then they give you an answer. But why? Why would they do that? In order to affect what? To make what happen? So that what? And this is that level of deeper and deeper questioning gets us to the true motivation behind something. And that's what we try and explore. So in this evening's show, what we're going to look at is various mechanisms that we can show you in real time of visibility filtering on other platforms besides Twitter. We're going to show you live what it looks like. So if you like, Jason, we can give the audience kind of a quick preview that's not
Before that,
terribly
John,
upsetting.
what I want to just do real quick is, because a lot of people are making comments about this, I think people should just take note. I don't know for sure, but I've observed over time that it definitely seems that the views that a video on YouTube generates is kind of directly affected by the number of subscribers on the channel. And that makes sense. If you've got 43,000 people who have ticked off that they want to know when you're making videos, that's 43,000 notifications that should go out. And I would expect some number larger than 66 to respond. I think generally, 1%, even 0.5%. We normally have hundreds of viewers in this show right now, and none of the individual channels have over 100. And I mean, people could say, they're probably watching the Twitter files drop, or who knows. But I'm not so sure, John, because I have noticed a really sharp decrease in viewership overall that seems to have coincided with the midterm elections. And as soon as the midterms ended, I separately noticed, when the FBI says, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're hearing chatter. I'm hearing chatter, like people and accounts and things that I know are questionable are popping off and doing all kinds of tiny little subtle stuff that causes me to believe that the forces of assholism have coordinated to prepare what they're going to do for the 2024 presidential election season, and it's underway now.
Oh, I think we might be like the new Avengers, right? And,
What do you mean?
In that we have to, stand in the face of evil.
Yeah.
So, and the way we're going to do it is by simply exposing it and shedding a light on it. Now, I don't have 44 billion. I don't have 22. You don't have 22. We can't go in halvesies. So what we're going to need to do is simply use the information. And that's what we've been doing. So without spending money, we just use the information that's publicly available. And in this evening's show, I'm going to share with you some information that I think the audience is going to find pretty fascinating.
Would you like to look at some of the deck?
Yeah, let's look at some of the deck. We have a bunch of videos that we're going to look at later with our patrons. But one of the things that we are going to look at, as you said, sometimes you look at how many subscribers does a channel have. And in this case, this is Rudy Giuliani. This was America's mayor. This is the guy that was, knee-deep in ash on September 11th. His headquarter building was 7 World Trade Center. That's where he was supposed to go. And then they evacuated it. And they went to J&R Music World. And that became, J&R Music World became their headquarters for the September 11th Command Center.
Is that right?
Is pretty crazy.
I don't think I knew that. It's closed now, J&R Music World.
Yeah, that became the headquarters on that right by the bridge, right by the entrance to the bridge, across from City Hall. Across from City Hall. And that became their temporary command center because his real command center was destroyed.
Well,
so he has
7.
Yeah, that's it. That's it, J&R Music World. So the story with Rudy Giuliani is he has over 500,000 subscribers. And we're going to take a look at how many views is he getting on his videos. and we'll see how that adds up. And we can do that a little bit later.
Not
But
that
you'll see,
many.
yeah, 2,400 views.
Wow.
Yeah, 6,000 views, 4,000 views, 2,800 views. So with 550,000 subscribers, his videos are getting 2,400 views, 3,000 views. These are the kinds of numbers you and I
Well, we used to
normally
get this
get.
in an hour. It used to be that we would
Yes.
finish a live stream and it would be over 1,000 typically, sometimes over 2,000. And like if I would go to sleep and wake up the next day, 2, 3, 10,000 views was typical.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, easily 5, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 views. And in the earlier days, the numbers that we were getting,
Huge.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I had videos with 80,000 views, 100,000 views, 200,000 views. So something happened. And whether it's that I just was competing with more kittens and puppies,
I don't think
right?
so.
I mean, it could be that. It could just be the kittens got cuter, more puppy videos, right? And, that's what
That kid with
everybody
the
wants to
toys.
see. Yeah, everybody wants to see that, right? So if that's what it is, that's what it is. Let's jump ahead to the next slide in the deck. Let's see what we have here for the audience. I wanted to get some statistics on our hosts just to kind of put things in perspective. So, we do this show, this pre-show on YouTube, and again, I'm really grateful. There's some angel somewhere at YouTube that has kept the Johnny Hoover channel
Yeah.
alive. So whoever that is, thank you. And if you look at why YouTube is such a behemoth in this industry, they have 2.6 billion active monthly users.
a lot.
2.6 billion active monthly users. Yeah, don't you think that that's what HBO had in mind?
I don't think they ever
Right,
reached that, did
right.
they?
I mean, when they
Yeah.
set that thing up, they would be like, dude, this, we could get, half the, quarter of the planet. There's
Yeah.
now 8 billion people, by the way. So with
Wow.
8 billion people, this is more than a quarter of the people on Earth
Wow.
are using YouTube. Yeah.
Huh. I guess
All
that's
right, so
why
let's
I get recognized all over the place.
exactly. So let's jump ahead one more slide or two. See what we got here. Oh yeah, so I wanted to click on, sort of the statistics about YouTube, and I was using my VPN to connect through Hong Kong, but I guess they were routing my Hong Kong somehow through Vietnam or something like that. So next thing you know, this is how, and this is what I mean about the big firms tend to kind of outsmart themselves and work too hard. I'm a big fan of Craigslist. I think Craigslist has 42 people or something like that.
Wow.
I love that. I just love that. And to me, these guys are just working too hard to try and figure out where you are to personalize your experience and just come on. Put the stuff up there in English and just give people a bunch of flags. And
I will just
stop
add
mucking
one
around.
thing, John, because Craigslist is slightly problematic. Somebody, I think I know who, one time, it says 50 employees. Somebody one time, maybe it was Jason Burmis, I think it was, can't prove that, this is speculation. But after a slight argument with him on the phone where he put out some false information about me, made him look like an idiot, and then the next day someone, maybe it wasn't him, put my phone number with an ad on Craigslist saying, I'm moving out of town. Anybody want my free 65-inch Samsung TV? And it resulted in a DDoS attack on the phone where I was getting texts and phone calls all day. And there's just no tech support, no trust and safety that I could find on Craigslist, no way to find out who it was who did it. It's kind of dangerous. I think something in between Craigslist and 7,500 people doing yoga and making lattes all day is the right number. Maybe 1,000?
I think you're right.
I don't know.
Yeah. But I think when you look at the end product, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, when you look at that end product, it's supposed to be somewhat simple.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be complicated. So it makes you wonder, what is everybody doing? Just leave it alone. Let people type and hit the post button and stop monkeying with the software. Why does everybody feel this compelled to continue to monkey with the software.
I think it's
Just
the
leave it
power
alone.
that they have to. I mean, look, we're so Frankenstein way off the reservation of what Twitter is supposed to be. You know, everyone is there now. Some of these lefties kind of saying like, oh, well, all right, you know, why don't we just forget about all this and shake hands and be friends? This is not a simple matter of, you know, First Amendment violations and FTC violations and, you know, people having tortious interference claims and whatever. This thread that I have not had a chance to really read yet at all is talking about the decisions that were made in removing the President of the United States from his ability to communicate with his constituents. I have a feeling there are lawyers all over the place right now figuring out, is this treason? Is this acting against the U.S. government? Are we going to see some serious criminal charges and action taken against the likes of Jack Dorsey, Vijaya Gadde? I'm hoping Adam Sharp gets caught up in this whole mess because I believe, based on evidence that I've seen in the public domain, that he was very involved. And, you know, remember Jack Dorsey ducked out and it was like, why is he leaving? Maybe they knew something that we didn't know. And I have another question for you, John. This is a logic problem, and for our audience as well, because we definitely encourage people to participate, and we're only about 3 minutes away from the transition over to the sponsor-exclusive segment on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And the question that I want to ask you is, if the owners and executives of Twitter were aware that they were engaged in such egregious, very likely illegal activity, when Elon Musk tried to buy it, their initial behavior made sense. They activated that investor protection plan known as the poison pill, where they were trying to dilute the shares that Musk was buying to prevent him from taking it over. But then, as you recall, there was a shift. And it started with Al-Walid, because at first he was opposed. Then he said, oh, no, we want you to buy it. Then they tried to force him to buy it. How does that make sense if they didn't plant something in here that is intended to explode in Elon Musk's face?
It's a great question, because that aspect of the history of this is the part that still doesn't add up yet.
Right.
So that's kind of the part that we still have to kind of keep a finger on this and say, until the pieces, you know how with each one of these things that we've worked on, everything has to add up. Everything has to fall into place. It has to answer every inconsistency. It has to answer, how was Brady Cook shot? It has to answer, what was Clarissa talking about? What did her, you know, and when it all comes together and it answers everything, that's when you're on it. So when we have something like this, where it's sort of an open element, there's this aspect of this that doesn't add up, that means there's missing evidence that would answer it that we haven't found yet.
I agree. We haven't.
So yet, that doesn't mean that there aren't, you know, that maybe we have a corner of the puzzle solved. And that's, you know, that becomes sort of our foundation that we're working from. So that's okay. You know, these are complicated scenarios. I think this is the aspect of tonight's show that's going to blow people away. Again, we've been talking about the secrets. We've been talking about, what does the government not tell you? Right. And in tonight's show, we're going to take a look at Section 50, what it is, and why you don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm very curious to find out. We're going to be going there in just a minute. A lot of people in our chat are talking about Kyrsten Sinema leaving the Democratic Party and becoming an independent. I don't know that we're going to get an opportunity to speak about that tonight. Obviously, we can't cover everything. And you know, John, I am personally extremely interested in knowing everything there is to be known about these Twitter files, what was going on there from the inception of that horrendous company, how they were able to do the things that they did, and most importantly, what's going to happen to these people who I believe we're going to see evidence. I think we've already seen evidence of crimes, election stuff. But anyway, we'll be back in just 5 minutes. I hope people will join us on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen. or patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. We'll be back in less than 5 minutes, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you over there for the sponsor